Hunger changes everything. It strips the proud, silences the righteous, and makes monsters of the meek. But none was worse than what I've witnessed in Oberwald. There that evil carry on, not through bargains or curses, but by looking the other way, as long as the hearth stays warm and the table full. The evil they ignore is older than hunger itself. It's insidious, patient. It wakes when the world grows cold and grinds on without pity, without purpose, without end. 1743, Oberwald, The Quiet Harvest. A tale from the Book of Silas Crowe. In the year 1743, I found myself deep in the high passes of the Bavarian Alps, trudging a forgotten path, where the old trade roads thin into nothing but stone and snow. My horse had gone lame 2 days before, its leg snapped on the frozen rock. I left it behind to the wolves and crows and pressed on alone. The saddlebag burdened my shoulder, the rest I'd abandoned. Winter had come early that year, far too early. The path should have been clear until harvest, but a blizzard had buried the trail before dusk. Now the world was nothing but billowing white curtains in the dark. No sound but the wind's endless scream, the crunch of my boots breaking the crust, and the rasp of my breath. Leaning into the gale, I tried to find another way. Each step was a struggle, but I dared not stop, not there. A lantern swung from my hand, its weak flame sputtering behind frosted glass. It revealed nothing for a long while, except the bleak darkness and the white snow below. But when the weather had thinned, a dim red glow appeared like a vengeful spirit. Hunger drove me to run toward it. With each strike, the glow swelled, spreading against the dark like dawn through a heavy fog. Distant and faint came merry voices, singing, laughter, the sharp ring of cups, the crack and hiss of fire. A celebration? The parting snow revealed a village huddled in a hollow beneath the ridge, tucked close like children hiding under a blanket. Stone cottages, their walls crusted with frost, windows glowing soft with firelight. Smoke curled from heavy chimneys. The scent of burning pine and roasting meat drifted thin on the cold wind. At the center, like a wound on the earth, was a bonfire. It roared against the snowfall, defiant and bright, casting long shadows on the snow. Around it gathered a few dozen souls, cloaked thick against the coal, faces ruddy with spirits. They laughed, they sang. A stringed instrument played a melody, the note thin but clear above the howl of the wind. Bread passed from hand to hand. A spit turned with something fat and dripping skewered over the coals. Cups raised, jokes told, a feast. I stood frozen at the edge of the light, my lantern dim against the glow. My stomach, hollow, my fingers were numb, and my legs trembled. My body begged to join them. I had no choice. The past behind me lay buried under feet of snow, closed for a week or more. I wasn't the only one. Beyond the fire's circle, travelers sat with them, distinguished by their dress. Traders, peddlers, lost souls caught in the storm. Snow still clung to their cloaks. Weariness set them apart. Their eyes flicked often toward the hills. I raised my lantern and gazed upward, starless. The last time I saw Raven, he was flying east, but that was days ago. I wondered if he had lost me, or I him. In surveying the sky, I finally noticed something darker than the night. Looming at the back, stark black, a windmill groaned. Its crooked sails were like giant spider legs crouching over its brood. The village nestled beneath it, unaware. "Marcus Heller," said a man with a thick hooded coat sitting beside me. His beard was frosted, his cheeks wind-capped, but his eyes were watchful, sharp beneath the hood. He gestured behind me to a thin woman and a boy of no more than 10 by her side. "My wife, Elise, and little Otto. We're from Ulm, merchant by trade." "Wanderer," I tipped my hat. He waited for a name, but when it was clear I would give none, he glanced back toward the bonfire. "Looks merry, doesn't it? But I'll rest easier when this storm passes. Strange place to be stranded. Strange folk, too. What are they celebrating, you reckon?" "Not sure," I said, watching a short, broad-shouldered man approach us. One of them. I didn't like his smile. Too wide, too eager. "Welcome, stranger." He pressed something warm into my hand. "You made it just in time. Oberwald's fires burned raw beneath them." I glanced down. It was a rough wooden bowl filled with steaming broth, thick and dark. Chunks of tender meat floated within. A few wild herbs stirred the surface, their scent sharp beneath the heavy smell of fat. A piece of bread rested against the rim. "Mountains provides," the man said. "I hope you like mountain goat." I thanked him, but didn't touch the food until he went dancing with the others. The bread was soft, fresh, yet when I broke it, something sour touched my nose. I watched the others munch on theirs, but I put mine aside. The bonfire crackled. The merriment went on, but it was the village that held my attention. Every cottage window stood open. Pale candlelight flickered from within, dim and warped through old glass. Behind the wavy panes, blurred faces stood watching. Old men, women, even children, still as dolls half forgotten on a shelf. There was no animal, no sign of livestock, no goat pens, no chicken coops, not even dogs barking, no bleating from stables, not even a bird's cry in the sky. I glanced at the meat floating in the broth. Mountain goat, huh? Around the bonfire, villagers laughed and swayed, spinning slow circles on the packed snow, with their eyes cut toward us, the outsiders, too often. It almost seemed like they were counting heads. I swallowed hard and turned my gaze upward, drawn by a dreadful creaking. The air lay dead and still, but the mill groaned on. The sails stirred in the same steady rhythm. No grain wagons, no miller, no sound of grinding stone, but the great wooden bones creaked and moaned just the same. A shudder crept down my spine. Something turned the mill, and it wasn't the wind. I made my rest at the edge of the village square, beneath the leaning shadow of an empty cart. I pulled my cloak tight and propped my lantern close for a little bit of warmth. The bonfire had burned low. The songs had thinned to murmurs. The villagers had returned to their homes to welcome sleep that eluded me. The others had drifted off, some to the barn, others to crude shelters piled high with hay and wool. My thoughts festered, haunted by something sinister hiding behind normality. The way the villagers danced, the way they counted us with their glances, the way the windmill always turned in the dead air. Unnatural. I shifted on the brittle hay. My stomach pleaded to taste the cooling broth beside my pack. For a breath, I missed the raven, that damn bird, his bitter croak, his black stare. Even his foul temper I would have welcomed to break this strange silence. Where is he, anyway? I listened to the whisper of snow against the village. hoping its rhythm would lull me to sleep. And the cursed groan of the mill was always present. Each creak scratched at my ears, preventing rest from ever reaching me. From that monotonous murmur, a faint footstep whispered through. I peered into the night mist and perceived a drifting shape. A child's silhouette, pale against the faint glow of torches and lanterns. Bare feet, thin nightclothes flapping about him. No one should wander in the cold dressed like that. I rolled over, pushed myself up, and strode toward him by the light of my lantern. "Boy," I whispered, "where are you going?" He didn't answer. I caught up with him. Wide, vacant eyes reflected my lantern's light. It was Otto, the merchant's boy. His small hands dangled at his sides. Each step was slow, dragging. His movement lacked purpose, yet when I followed the line of his path, a cold thrum pulsed through my chest. He was heading toward the black hill where the mill loomed. "Otto!" I gripped his shoulders. "Wake up! Otto!" As if enthralled, he kept shuffling ahead until I shook him. His eyes blinked, finally registering my gaze. A shiver ran through him. "Where am I?" he asked, teeth clicking. "You're that wanderer, aren't you?" I crouched beside him, lantern light pooling between us in the snow. "Do you often walk in your sleep, boy?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, never." His eyes darted toward the black silhouette of the mill in the gloom beyond. "Then what were you doing out here?" Otto swallowed hard, his gaze distant now, as if looking through me. I was dreaming, but it felt real when I heard it." "Heard what, boy?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "A whistling, faint, like hollow reeds, or breath blowing through cracks in old wood. It called me. Can you hear it?" "No," I said. "Do you hear it now?" He hugged himself, but his shivering didn't ease. "No." The cold slid deeper into my bones. I watched at the mill. Not a breath stirred the trees, yet its crooked sails turned and creaked. Only when we turned to leave did the wind rise, rushing down from the hill with a sudden force. As it passed through the sails, a thin, uncanny whistle wound through the air. A man was missing. A thinker from Salzburg had vanished in the night. "Perhaps he needed to relieve himself," they said. "He must have wandered off. The snow's deep out there, easy to lose your way." "The wolves roam these parts," said another. "Or maybe the cold took him. Got inside his head, it did." "Don't worry," said another. "We'll help look for him." I didn't like how unbothered their tone was, as if it were a common thing. Their lips twitched at odd moments, as if stifling a smile. Their eyes flicked sideways. Compulsive hands kept brushing at sleeves, tugging hems, fussing with buttons. And wolf? I'd been up all night. Not a single howl. No owl hooted, no rustling branches, and not even a twig snapped. Silent. The travelers muttered low among themselves. Some were ready to leave, but the storm crouched over the mountains, unmoving. It was either waiting for it to pass or turning back, and none could afford to turn back. I searched the sky. Still no raven. I'd been certain he was leading me east, perhaps to Innsbruck, before he vanished. Was this one of his tricks? It wouldn't be the first time he'd gotten me lost. While a few went off to search for the thinker, I spent the day foraging. I followed old game trails through the trees, but the forest seemed wrong. No birds called, no tracks crossed the snow. Not even a frost-bitten berry clung to the vine. Empty, as if the land had starved. The mountain provides, huh? If no prey lived in these woods, if no predator prowled, then what filled their storehouses? What was smoke in their hearts? What rich dark meat floated in their broth? And what happened to the thinker? Cold knotted tight in my gut. By the time the last light drained from the sky, hunger gnawed at me sharper than fear. Pride broke before need. I returned to the village square, already dreading what I needed to do to survive. They greeted me with their quiet smiles. Another steaming bowl they pushed into my hands. The same rich stew, thick, fragrant, heavy with herbs and grease. Chunks of meat so tender they fell apart at the touch of my spoon. Meat no hunter in these hills could have caught. They had lit another bonfire. I sat alone this time, avoiding the others, though I often exchanged glances with little Otto across the square. The scent rose and clouded my senses. My stomach clenched. I stirred the broth, watching the slick surface shimmer like oil. I lifted the spoon, let it cool, and tasted it. Salt, fat, marrow. The meat gave no resistance. As I chewed, something lingered, something faint, sour beneath the fat. I swallowed. It settled with a quiet finality, as if I'd agreed to something without meaning to. In the distance, the windmill groaned, a long, low moan across the snow, something old turning in the dark. Sleep claimed me that night, fed by exhaustion and the sluggish hit of a full stomach, but even those could not keep me in slumber. At the witching hour, when the world lay quiet, something woke me. Faint and hollow, like a gush of wind skirling through the wood, came a whistle, a dry sound, thin as threads, winding through the dark. It stirred the hairs at the back of my neck, slithered into my thoughts like smoke. It bore no tune, no music, no rhythm. It called and waited. I rose. There was no trace of sleep in my eyes or my mind, as if I were still dreaming. My breath steamed in the cold air, as if my spirit was trying to escape. My legs moved without command, step by step through the brittle snow, past the sleeping forms of strangers curled near the dying fire. The whistling tugged at me, pulled me forward like a line wound tight to my bones. On I plodded toward the hill, toward the looming black thing and its crooked legs. The village square fell away behind me, lost in the mist. Up ahead, behind the dark trees and the rising slope, a shape drifted like I did. Marcus, the merchant from Ulm, his cloak trailed like a shadow in the snow. The whistling, it wound between us, around us, as if the wind had learned to speak, or some old thing sighed through its broken bones. It hallowed my weary mind. Never once did I question what he was doing, or what I was doing. Unmoored, heedless of each other, we kept our pace steady. The path to the hill stretched long, blurred at the edges like a fading dream. My hands and feet were numb. Only the cold weight of my body and the pull of that thin, endless note led me on. At the hill's crest, the windmill waited. Marcus reached the mill door first. He pushed it open and stepped inside without hesitation. No struggle, no plea, like a drunken prey ensnared by the black spider's venom. Yet, I followed. The smell hit me first. Old grain, wet wood, and rot. The stink of damp stone and something else. The tang of iron and marrow, bone dust. The inside was white and dark, the walls rising above into a black dome of timber and beams. A single round window permitted the moonlight in. The floor was slick with old grease and blackened flour. scattered with scraps of cloth, snapped buttons, rusted tools, and bones. Clean bones, sorted like firewood. Skulls grinned from the shadowed corners. Small, large, old. At the mill's heart stood the great grinding stones, enormous, rough-edged discs of granite, spinning on their iron axle. But there was no grain between them, no flour sifted, only Marcus, calm, slack, eyes glassy as sleep, obedient. The great wooden press arm swung down from the ceiling on creaking ropes. It pressed against his shoulders like a lover's hand, gentle, persistent. It pushed him to his knees, lower and lower, until he curled flat on the stone. There was no scream, even when the bones cracked. Blood hissed between the stones like crushed grapes. The wheel above turned in its steady rhythm, dragging the sails outside, unflinching. Whispered a hoarse, wheezing voice. It's bliss. I raised my eyes. At the far wall, shrouded in shadow, he turned the wheel. The miller was tall, broad. Its coat hung heavy with old grease and sifted dust. Its hat brushed the beams above. Beneath the brim was nothing but darkness and the faint glow of two red coals where its eyes should have been. Crooked hands clutched a great wooden wheel driving the gears and shafts, turning, without haste or strain. The timbers groaned. Outside, the sails creaked and spun, fed by the miller's slow strength. The windmill had never needed wind, only this thing grinding on in the dark. Marcus' crushed remains slid from the stones, limp, tender. The miller turned to me. Rest for a while. Forever. Soon. Later. Makes no difference. Stay. He extended one crooked hand. I was indeed tired, weary. I'd wandered the earth for too long, walked too far. Perhaps he was right. Perhaps it was time to rest. I stared at the great stones. Their slow grinding rhythm was as hypnotic as a cradle sway. The whistling wound through the dark air, singing of sweet dreams, so peaceful, like warm sleep, like forgetting. My legs moved, a step toward the stones, toward the quiet, toward my resting bed of pillows and sand, of earth and dust. With my belly full of warmth and my weary muscles aching, I longed for rest. I deserved it. Tap, tap, tap. It came from above. I frowned, but the dream was thick around me. I lifted my foot again, a slow step followed by another. The stones were calling me, the whistling soothing. Tap, tap, tap. The sound matched my steps at first, like an echo. But as I went, the tapping grew faster, sharper, violent, urgent. When I took another step, the window shattered. The pieces fell like snowflakes. A cold gush knifed through the dark, and with it, a croak so loud it awakened me. I gasped, the haze burning from my mind. My head snapped upward. High above, in the mill's only window, Raven perched, black against the dark beams. His coal eyes burned, wings spread, throat cracking with furious cries. Get out! Raven shrieked. Get out! Get out! I stumbled back from the stones, away from the grinding wheel, away from the stench of blood and bone, away from the dark thing of the mill. My heart thundered in my chest, the spell broken. My limbs, heavy with sleep, strained to move with each returning awareness. I fled the mill into the snow and the freezing dark. Ravens croak and fluttering wings were most welcome amidst the eerie silence. I surveyed the cottage's windows, pitch black. I ran past the smoldering embers toward where little Otto and her mother lay. I peeled the thick woolen blanket to see the boy's puffy face. With a hand covering his mouth, I woke him. Though groggy with sleep, his eyes opened wide. I put a finger to my lips and said, "Take your mother and the others away from here. Run, if you have to. These people aren't right." When I lifted my hand, he asked, "Where's father?" I shook my head. "Run, boy. Don't turn back. Not even for your father. And don't touch their food." Above me, ravens circle, black and small against the pale stars. I left Otto, gathered my things, and followed my impeccable rescuer. "Thank you, old friend." I tipped my hat toward Raven and braced for the long road west to escape the mountains. The snow crunched under my boots as I crossed the ridge. Behind me, the village sank into the dark hollow below. The mist swallowed its crooked roofs and that chimney. Still, the windmill groaned its tireless lament. The wind whistled in my ear. I pulled my cloak tighter and kept going with thoughts spinning. They had known. The villagers. Every face behind every window. Every glance by the fire. They knew what stirred in the mill. Yet, they did nothing. They didn't take anyone captive or harm anyone. They welcomed. They offered hospitality. They looked the other way. They slept, knowing what was happening at night. They let the miller grind on, as long as it wasn't their sons, daughters, or neighbors the monster took. The mountain provides, they said. They must have tasted hunger before, and it corrupted them into silent complicity. Yes, hunger changes everything. Esau sold his birthright for a single meal. Israel hungered in the desert and doubted their God. Even the devil tempted Christ with bread. In Oberwald, they let evil grind on, harvesting wandering souls. I almost became one of them, but the old world wasn't done with me yet, nor I with it. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more tales from the Book of Silas Crowe. Until next time.